The meeting scheduled this week will be the first face-to-face discussions between the two sides since their top leaders met at the G20 summit in Japan last month. Analysts said that holding the talks in Shanghai, the country's financial hub, will enable the U.S. to better understand China's determination to open up further. Previously, the trade talks in China took place in Beijing.
The recent Chinese purchase of U.S. agricultural products sends a positive signal and paves the way for trade talks in Shanghai.
According to China's Development and Reform Commission and the Ministry of Commerce on Sunday, several million tons of soybeans have already been loaded and will soon be on their way to China. Meanwhile, the U.S. has already exempted extra duties on 110 items of industrial products from China. Earlier this month, some Chinese enterprises have consulted with U.S. suppliers over the prices of cotton, pork, and sorghum. Agreements have been reached on some products and also on the exemptions of extra duties on U.S. imports.
There is huge demand in Chinese agricultural products market. Our import is growing year by year. The U.S. side can only benefit by cooperating with China.
Experts say that Chinese enterprises will continue to purchase U.S. agricultural products in accordance with its needs. And sources from both ministries said the new deals on imports of U.S. agricultural products will be reached as long as prices are reasonable and the products of good quality. China hopes that the U.S. can come up with more concrete measures to ensure a good atmosphere and positive outcome for the trade talks.
Yang Guang of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office says the recent events have undermined Hong Kong's prosperity and stability and touched the bottom line of the one country, two systems principle.
三条底线不能触碰.
Yang stresses key stances of the central government. Beijing hopes Hong Kong people will oppose and boycott violence and firmly protect its rule of law. Yang further stresses that Hong Kong should end political wrangling as soon as possible and focus on developing the economy and improving people's livelihoods.
坚决支持.
The central government resolutely supports Chief Executive Carrie Lam as leader of the Special Administrative Region's government, implementing policy according to the law. It resolutely supports strict enforcement of the law by the Hong Kong police. It resolutely supports the punishment of lawbreakers by judicial departments according to the law and safeguarding the rule of law.
Yang discusses the importance of abiding by laws and investigating and dealing with those who break it, instead of resorting to violence.
任何主张
No matter how noble they think their goals might be, they cannot express themselves in an illegal or violent manner. Violence is violence, and illegal behavior is illegal behavior. The nature of that will not be changed by making false propositions.
Yang says the central government will continue to unswervingly implement the principle of one country, two systems, and ensure that this principle remains unchanged and it's not tampered with in practice.
一国是根是本.
The one country is the roots. The roots need to be deep for the leaves to flourish. When we implement this in Hong Kong and Macau, we emphasize three bottom lines. We absolutely do not allow damage to national security and national sovereignty. We absolutely do not allow challenges to the authority of the central government and Hong Kong's basic law. And we absolutely do not allow the use of Hong Kong to infiltrate and damage the mainland. We can talk about the two systems only on the basis of one country.
基本法
Yang adds that Hong Kong is China's Hong Kong, so this is China's domestic affairs. It won't allow foreign countries' intervention. Some countries want to turn Hong Kong into China's problem, but China intends to prevent that. Yang says the most important task for Hong Kong now is to firmly punish violent crimes, recover the safety of society, and maintain its good rule of law.
Several funds allocated shares in the stock market are seeing major rises. The ETF run by Southern Asset Management saw a boost in holdings of almost 50% on the day of the stock's debut. And other similar products also received big purchases during the day. Much of the enthusiasm for the exchange-traded funds stems from stock's high threshold for investors, which means the ETFs are an effective investment method for both individual and institutional investors otherwise not qualified to bid for the new high-tech stocks.
Investors' willingness to invest in the stock market stems from their desire for valuable and sustainable shares. But the investment threshold of the stock market is quite high, which means not everyone is able to invest in the new board. So they use ETF products to get access to high yields over the middle and long term.
Assets under management of China's outstanding exchange-traded funds hit a record high last year, according to research company Oliver Wyman. The company says ETFs are gaining popularity among both retail and institutional investors, especially the funds tracking startups. The eFund Chinex ETF, for example, saw a rise in holdings of more than 480% in 2018. One of the reasons, of course, is the large potential growth of the middle and small-sized firms, which the Chinex ETF tracks, while at the same time, ETFs offer an easy and convenient way to invest.
Yeah, in the last year, we see a lot of participation in China Next ETF. So one of the reasons is that it's a very efficient tool for Chinese investors to get exposure, get investment into the tech market, which is normally the China Next market is less liquid, less easy for investors to invest. So it becomes a very efficient tool for investors to invest in.
Experts also expect more ETF products tracking the new stock market to be released in the coming months, especially after the launch of the stock market index by the Shanghai Stock Exchange and the China Securities Index.
In Weishan-Yi Autonomous County in Yunnan Province, a total of 1,100 drones took to the night sky for this year's Torch Festival. At the festival's climax on Saturday evening, designs depicting the ethnic totem images and popular icons mesmerized the spectators on the ground.
I found the show simply spectacular. I've never seen such a fascinating drone flight performance until this very night. The designs are great and they are so lifelike. I was especially impressed by the neon light of a girl playing a lute, which was echoed in the night sky by exactly the same design.
The Torch Festival, also known as Fire Festival, is the biggest summer holiday for the Yi ethnic group in southwest China. It has been celebrated for centuries in the 6 months of the Yi calendar. It originated as a commemoration of a legendary hero, but has come to involve a wider audience in recent years.
The festival is a marked departure from its traditional version. It's more open and more willing to involve visitors from the outside. It has successfully blended old customs with the new spirit of our time. In its presentation, we're using high technologies. The festival has become a very effective way for us to reach out.
This year, the Torch Festival celebrations in Weishan County drew more than 100,000 tourists.
Even during a picturesque sunrise, the impacts from the lack of rain are visible. The brown earth and empty, parched paddocks where crops once grew now dominate the landscape across much of rural New South Wales. For 35-year-old Andrew Freeth, those impacts are inescapable.
This is the worst drought that this area has seen in my father's lifetime, in my lifetime.
That means making sure the grain stored in these silos to hand feed his sheep lasts, and planting a season without planting crops.
We're now moving into our 3rd year, so we're really having to widen back spending and be very careful on any future decisions we now make. And we're really just trying to hold on now until the season turns around.
It's estimated some of the hardest hit areas will require truckloads of water just to survive. Up to 1,400 truckloads along roads like this in a single month, in some cases costing up to $1.5 million. The economic impact from the lack of water is flowing through communities, including the city of Dubbo. Charities that run retail stores here and offer assistance are seeing an increase in the number of people who need help.
Retail's hurting as well because people obviously don't have spare cash to be able to spend. That also flows on to other industries such as hairdressers, where people may have got a haircut every 4 to 6 weeks. Now they're getting one every 2 to 3 months. We've got mums now cutting kids' hairs at home.
For now, there is little relief in the forecast as the drought threatens to extend into another hot, dry summer.
Probably the biggest challenge, as much as the dry landscape or the hungry sheep or the lack of crops to harvest, is staying mentally strong.
While figuring out how much more to cut back until those options, like so many rivers here, run dry.